In this lunchtime news broadcast, we bring you the latest news, both local and international, ranging from current affairs, community stories, sports, and economic news. Here are the news headlines. Repo rate increases from 6.75% to 7%. City of Windhoek contract workers and Michael Amushelelo demand for answers on fixed employment. Water shortage cripples Groot Aub farmers. I am Glen Rashipura, and this is NMH at 1. In today's midday news update, the Bank of Namibia yesterday announced a 25 basis points increase in the repo rate from 6.75% to 7%. That means the prime lending rates for local commercial banks will increase from 10.5% to 10.75%.
For February 2023, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Namibia held its bi-monthly meeting to decide on the appropriate monetary policy stance to be implemented over the next 2 months. To continue anchoring inflation expectations and safeguarding the PEC arrangement, the MPC decided to increase the Repo rate by 25 basis points to 7% with immediate effect. This decision was taken following comprehensive review of global, regional and domestic economic developments.
Remember to engage with these stories on social media throughout the broadcast. Visual news coming up after the break.
Active Kids is an initiative under the MyZone brand that aims to provide exciting and easy activities and fun stories. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na. Active Kids, where we actively invest in your future.
Getting into today's visual news, City of Windhoek contract workers joined by Namibian economic freedom fighter Michael Amushelelo demand for answers on fixed employment.
The workers of City of Windhoek, mostly the ward cleaners, have been here since Monday morning, and they are simply demanding to be given permanent jobs with the same benefits as all other city employees. Now, this issue has been ongoing since 1990. These people have been working on contracts ever since then. Now, what is saddening and what is disheartening is that people, when they go on pension, they do not have any pension payouts, they do not have any medical aid benefits, they literally have nothing. So after, let's say, 33 years of service to the City of Windhoek, you are simply discarded like you are a piece of garbage. So just because these people clean the City of Windhoek does not constitute that they are garbage. They are human beings just like all of us, and they should be treated as such. Part of the reason why the city rankings has gone down in terms of cleanliness, and one of the cleanest cities in Africa, is due to the fact that workers are working unmotivated. How can you be working for the last 33 years on a contract basis where you don't have employment security? Who in their right mind wakes up every day not knowing that your job is secured or anything of the sort? These people want to live normal lives. They want to go to shops, buy their beds on credit, buy their fridges on credit, buy their microwaves. These people want to be able to buy plots. They want to be able to have houses. They want to live normal lives just like any other residents of the city. So we are saying that we are not going to move from this place until this issue has been addressed. Because this back and forth things that the city is giving us in terms of apparently we must vacate from here because it's an illegal gathering and workers are going to be dismissed and anything of that sort. We want to tell the city that we are not afraid of being dismissed. We are not afraid to die here, but we are going to stand up for our rights because 33 years of mistreating us, 33 years of exploiting us, 33 years of abusing us. We are saying enough is enough. You are no longer going to continue treating us like we are rubbish. We are going to make sure that this city is clean, starting from these offices, because clearly there is a lot of mess that's going on here. Imagine these people for the last 4-5 years cannot appoint a CEO. Now what about resolving the issue of these 500 plus workers if they cannot resolve a position for one person?
The mayor of Walvis Bay, Trevino Forbes, has announced that the Road Fund Administration has accepted the council's request to increase the funding for road maintenance that they currently give to the council from $6.75 million Namibian dollars. Now, RFA accepted the responsibility to rehabilitate the port's roads by budgeting $248 million Namibian dollars for the next 5 years.
The town's harbour is fast becoming a key part of the Southern African development community. The high volume of international traffic, including heavy lorries transporting goods, is taking a toll on our town's roads. Yet the burden of road maintenance and repair falls squarely on the shoulders of the ratepayers in Walvis Bay. In the financial year for 2022-2023, 19 million has been budgeted for road maintenance and rehabilitation for 60 road sections totaling to about 50 kilometers. In a meeting held with RFA regarding them coming on board and increasing the funding of road maintenance that they currently give the council, which is about 6.7 million, RFA accepted the responsibility to rehabilitate the port roads by budgeting 248 million for the next 5 years. It is indeed great news for council and the town. We now have no more excuses, and work on the roads must commence in all earnest. Tomorrow the council and management will be discussing the framework to relocate the first 50 beneficiaries to Farm 37. I hope that this will be the first small steps towards land delivery, for which our residents have been pleading for years. Due to the complexity of the project, we must cautiously proceed to ensure that the right things are done correctly from the beginning, to avoid committing and making promises that we cannot deliver on. As we are now committed to moving people to Farm 37, it might be a good time for council to consider moves to establish a council-owned brick-making factory, which will supply bricks to our residents at the most affordable price.
Fly Namibia and its affiliate West Air Aviation have officially objected against the registration of Fly Etosha Airways. More on this in the newspaper review segment.
The Agenda is a weekly national affairs interview program hosted every Sunday by Namibian Sun editor Toyvon Jabela, featuring a panel of high-profile newsmakers, analysts, and experts. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact agenda@synergy.com.na. The Agenda, focused on today's conversation.
Getting into our newspaper review, according to Namibian Sun, Fly Namibia and its affiliate West Air Aviation have officially objected against the registration of Fly Etosha Airways, citing serious safety concerns as a reason. It also listed reasons such as a lack of resources, aircraft maintenance facilities, ground handling facilities, insurance cover, and personnel for the objection. Fly Namibia has meanwhile rejected any claims that this objection was launched to deter another airline from starting operations and thus discouraging competition. The new airline's application to provide air transport services was published in the Government Gazette on the 23rd of January, and time was provided for objections to be submitted until Tuesday this week to the Secretary of the Transport Commission of Namibia. The paper's page 3 reports on former Ohangwena governor and now full-time farmer Usko Ngahamwa, who has made various donations to the education fraternity over the years, who says he's not interested in any political office. People think when I make donations, I want to come back to office. I'm not hungry for any office, he said. Now, Republican reports that the Danish citizen who in January this year died in a glider accident near Repo had no education or approval to fly a glider. According to a preliminary report of the Ministry of Works and Transport Directorate for Aircraft Accident and Incident Investigations, 54-year-old Juan Steenberg had a private pilot's license, which was issued by the Namibian Civil Aviation Authority, but it had already expired on the 17th of October 2018. Now, the paper's page 3 reports on the household waste of Okahanja residents that has allegedly not been removed for a month. The reason for this is apparently because the municipality's 4 garbage lorries have been declared unroadworthy. Our lorries were stopped and therefore we could not provide these services, but we are in the process of obtaining services, the town's chief executive, Alphonse Chitombe, said on Tuesday. The continuous interruptions in the town's garbage removal services are attributed to the life of the lorries, 2 tipper trucks and 2 refuse lorries that can compact the waste. According to the Allgemeine Zeitung, Defense Minister Frans Kapofi says no one has come forward to claim ownership of a sail drone the Namibia Defence Force discovered in Namibian waters last month. The unmanned surface vehicle was in the safe custody of the NDF, he added. We don't know who the owners are because no one has approached us to claim it, Kapofi said. A Namibian tour operator based in Ludres, who was allegedly hired by the American controller of the drone to bring the device ashore for repairs, had been called in for questioning by the military. As if that wasn't enough drama, 2 South African men, one with Namibian citizenship, were pulled out of their hotel last week after it emerged they were sent by the controller to repair the drone in Namibia. Now, the Allgemeine Zeitung's page 3 reports on the Supreme Court in Windhoek that decided in the past week that the decision the Council had made on immigration from the Department of Foreign Affairs, a South African family's application for permanent refuse to stay in Namibia, was wrong and inappropriate. The man with his wife and her 3 children are settled in Namibia. Although the man works as a manager in a large construction company in Namibia and earns an above-average salary, the Immigration Council decided that he was not able to support his family financially. Do stay tuned for more newspaper review after the break.
Africa Good Morning is a current affairs program that brings you the latest from Southern Africa and beyond. News, economics, sport, weather, interviews, and so much more. For any advertising or news-related queries, contact AGM at synergy.com.na. Africa Good Morning, bringing Africa to you.
We continue with our newspaper review. According to the Namibian newspaper, Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs, Frans Kapofi, has warned soldiers to stop stealing and selling government ammunition. Kapofi said this yesterday when he addressed his ministerial staff in Windhoek. He told the Namibian that a soldier was arrested and relieved of his duties last year after he was caught stealing arms. According to the Namibian's page 3, experts have called for aggressive enforcement of the Code of Conduct regarding the declaration of assets by parliamentarians. They added that the declaration of assets and interests by members of parliament is in their best interest and in the best interest of members of parliament, and also an essential tool in terms of transparency and accountability. In its latest report, the Institute of Public Policy Research once again noted that MPs continue to struggle to adhere to the rules. On to New Era, farmers in northern Namibia can breathe a sigh of relief following the government's decision to compel its entities to buy meat products from suppliers north of the Red Line, creating a new market. These entities include but are not limited to public schools, universities, state hospitals, and correctional facilities. The areas north of the Red Line are dubbed the northern communal areas. 3 police officers allegedly involved in the murder of a former police officer that took place last week at a Hafo-Lakandenge village in the Oshana region have been arrested on murder charges yesterday and made their first court appearance at the Oshakati Magistrates Court on the first day and were denied bail. The Bank of Namibia has announced a 25 basis points increase in the repo rate from 6.75% to 7%, hiking the prime lending rate from 10.5% to 10.75%. The Namibia Statistics Agency also announced that annual inflation came in at 7% in January 2023, hence the real policy interest rate repo rate is now neutral. While Wuto Trading says it cares for its employees' well-being, merchandisers from the company have alleged that they have not received a salary increment since 2019. More on this in the economic news segment.
AgriMonitor is jou weeklikse landboukundige program wat jou die jongste nuus in die landbouverwante bedryf en onderwerpe wat daaraan gekoppel is bring. Vir enige advertensie of nuusverwante navrae, kontak agrimonitor@synergy.com.na.
In your economic news, Rural and Urban Development Minister Erastus Uthoni paid a visit to Groot Aub farmer Oscar Elago's farm this week after the farmer begged for assistance with boreholes. Uthoni was joined by Agriculture Minister Carl Schleitwein and Commerce Governor Laura McLeod Kashira. According to Elago, due to water shortages, he has lost 20,000 chickens and 12,000 layers over the last 2 years. His chickens produce 10,800 eggs daily. I have been sent from pillar to post when asking for approval to drill in this area. The city of Windhoek told me straight up to my face that the farmers aren't their problem and their priority is the residents. Who too don't have water, Elago said. Now, other farmers shared Elago's grief for livestock losses and said the city of Windhoek uses possible water contamination from animal excrement as an excuse to not permit farmers to drill for water on their farms. Let's take a look at the economic indicators. One British pound will now cost you $21 Namibian and 72 cents, as the local currency has dropped in value against most of these currencies. Stock prices on the NSX remain unchanged. First Rent Namibia stock still strong at $33 Namibian and 51 cents. SBN holding stocks are up by 1%, while overall index has closed higher, and the opposite is true for overall index. Brent crude oil prices have increased by 0.56%, while other commodity prices have dropped by at least 99%. Ivory Coast reopened its land borders, closed since March 2020. Don't miss news from Africa here on NMH at 1.
In Business 7, you get news on current economic, financial, and business matters in Namibia. The weekly show features interviews with experts and in-depth analysis of burning issues in a way that caters for ordinary Namibians and business connoisseurs alike. For news-related or advertising queries, please contact b7@synergy.com.na.
Getting into our continental news, Ivory Coast has reopened its land borders on Wednesday night, closed since March 2020 at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the government spokesman announced after the councils of ministers. Côte d'Ivoire had closed its land, sea and air borders on the 22nd of March 2020 when the whole world was barricaded against the pandemic. While the sea and air borders reopened after a few months, the land borders remain closed. Côte d'Ivoire borders Liberia, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso and Ghana. Millions of people from these countries living on Ivorian soil had to take back roads to their home countries. We are now in control of the clandestine transit roads. We invite all travelers to use the official routes from now on, Kalubali said. Now, Cote d'Ivoire had been relatively spared by the COVID-19 pandemic, with about 800 deaths according to official figures. Last month, the National Security Council, chaired by Head of State Alassane Ouattara, welcomed the excellent results recorded in the fight against COVID-19 since 2020 and announced the gradual lifting of the measures provided for under the state of health emergency. In our next story, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the country's central bank to release the old 200 naira banknotes back into circulation and run concurrently with the new ones till the 10th of April. The old 200 naira banknotes will then cease to be valid. Meanwhile, the old 500 and 1,000 naira banknotes are no longer valid and must be taken to the central bank through designated channels, he says. Nigerians have faced long queues at cash machines, with some sleeping outside banks to try and be the first in line to get some money. There have been angry protests in towns and cities as people struggle to get hold of the new banknotes. Nigeria last year started circulating newly designed 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes. The deadline to hand in old notes had been extended once to the 10th of February, after which the old notes would have become invalid. The deadline was, however, suspended by the Supreme Court last week. We now take a look at the international news. Several Russian strategic bombers and fighter jets were intercepted by North American air defense forces as they flew over international airspace near Alaska, the North American Aerospace Defense Command said, in routine incidents unrelated to tensions over the war in Ukraine. Other aircraft, which were identified on Monday, did not enter U.S. or Canadian airspace and did not pose a threat, the Joint U.S.-Canadian Center said in a statement dated February 14th. It added that the Russian flights were in no way related to the mysterious spate of airborne objects shot down by the U.S. military over the North America in the past few weeks, the details of which remain unknown. North American security forces have been on high alert since a suspected Chinese surveillance balloon crossed into U.S. airspace, prompting the United States to shoot it and other objects down as it combs the skies. We'll be taking a look at our local sports news shortly.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and 1up2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Allgemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
Let's take a look at your local sports news. The Namibian national men's and women's under-21 teams hopes to represent Namibia at the Junior Africa Cup in Egypt hang in the balance as they currently lack the necessary funds for flights and accommodation. This is an international tournament that will take place from the 12th to the 19th of March, and it will serve as a qualification event for the FIH Hockey Junior World Cup in Malaysia. However, the teams need sponsorship in order to make this a reality, because if they finish in the top two of the qualifier event in Egypt, they will represent Namibia in Malaysia in December this year. The Sibino Kuro Classic shootout race will be epic this weekend, with Namibian track and field star Beatrice Maselingi featuring in the 300-meter women's event. Maselingi, who trains out of Newton Sports Agency, is set up to go against likes of South Africa's top 400-meter sprinter and African champion Marinda Kutsie and Norwegian international Line Kloster. Namibian female footballers are looking forward to the start of the FNB Women's Super League this weekend, despite the fact that some players' fitness is not up to scratch yet, something former Brave Gladiators captain and coach Mami Kasoana, who now coaches and plays for Girls and Goals, said they will work on as they are excited to be back on the field. We now take a look at our international sports news. Manchester City knocked Arsenal off their Premier League perch as second-half goals by Jack Grealish and Erling Haaland earned the champions a 3-1 victory in a crunch top-of-the-table clash at the Emirates Stadium on Wednesday. Arsenal had come from a goal down and looked capable of ending a 10-game losing streak in the league against City, but they ultimately came up short as their hopes of a first league title since 2004 suffered a setback. 7 times world champion Lewis Hamilton vowed on Wednesday to continue speaking out despite Formula One's governing body clamping down on drivers making political statements. The most successful driver in the sport's history has used his platform to highlight racial injustice, promote diversity, and address a range of issues from the environment to human rights. The governing FIH updated its international sporting code last December, requiring prior written permission to make or display political, religious, and personal statements or comments at races. Portugal and Chile start a slight advantage as 10 teams battle it up for the remaining 3 berths at this year's Women's World Cup in the final qualifying playoffs over the next week in New Zealand. Cameroon, Haiti, Panama, Paraguay, Senegal, Thailand, Taiwan, and Papua New Guinea are also involved in the tournament, which will complete the field for the first 32 teams Women's World Cup in New Zealand and Australia later this year. At 22nd in the world, Portugal are the highest ranked team in the tournament, and they await the winners of Saturday's clash between the Cameroonian and Thailand in Hamilton. If you are just joining us, this is NMH at 1, and we'll get into the highlights from today's broadcast shortly.
Flex is your health and fitness show that focuses on the health of the mind, body, and spirit. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
The Regional Review brings you news, views, and interviews from NMH correspondents from across the country. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact regional@synergy.com.na.
This is NMH at 1, and here are the news highlights. Ivory Coast has reopened its land borders on Wednesday night, closed since March 2020 at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Several Russian strategic bombers and fighter jets were intercepted by North American Air Defense Forces as they flew over international airspace near Alaska. The Namibian national men's and women's under-21 teams hopes to represent Namibia at the Junior Africa Cup in Egypt hang in the balance as they currently lack the necessary funds for flights and accommodation. Those have been your highlights. Remember to tune in every weekday at 1 p.m. to spend your lunch hour with NMH at 1, catching up on the latest news in Namibia, Africa, and the world, ranging from current affairs, economic news, sports, and international headlines. I am Glenn Rashipura. Until next time.